In today's video, I'm going to be doing what I guess I would consider the first real mechanical addition to the car. Again, this car is the 99 Lexus ES300. If you've seen any other videos on my channel, you've seen I've posted a variety of videos on that. And what we're going to be doing is installing a transmission cooler. And you see in front of me here, we have this. It's for this 97 Camry with the A541E. And you might be thinking, well, you have a 99 ES300 with a different transmission. If you know, it has the U140E. But I had the transmission rebuilt at the beginning of this year because it went out in the middle of a road trip. And it's the second time this transmission's been rebuilt. The other time was maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. So it's a different transmission, but if you look into it and if you know about it, you know it's the more troublesome transmission. And when I got it rebuilt, I was told that one of the culprits that destroyed it was heat, excessive heat. So fortunately, Toyota actually designed a cooler to go, maybe not with this specific transmission, but when you actually go look up parts for the Lexus ES300, you're going to see there's actually a transmission cooler that uses a lot of these same parts. Let me show you that. So here on parts.lexus.com, we're going to go down and there should be my 99 ES300. And then we're going to go down again to the transmission and driveline. And then we're going to go down again and we see, you know, there's the brake band, brake, oil cooler. So I'd seen this, you know, just surfing around parts, and I see that they have this cooler, but when you look in the actual vehicle, you don't see any cooler attached. You see right here those same style hoses, one going out, one coming in, and then it just goes into the radiator, and you know, one goes over there and it feeds into the radiator down there, and then the other one feeds into the radiator right here. So that's what was seen. So I'm like, where is this cooler? Why doesn't my car have this cooler? And I've actually looked for months for this, and I actually have the full service manual for the 2001 version of the car, which uses the same transmission. I didn't see anything. I believe the 97, 98 ES300 does use this trans, and they switched it over in the 99 year. Unfortunately, because I've heard very good things about the A541 and a lot of negative things, and have had to personally experience and pay for the negative things along with the U140E, that being by far the most expensive repair I've had to do on this car. So at the bottom of, I believe, online you can find the 99 Camry full service manual, and it's like 4,000 pages, and all the way at the bottom they have this thing about the oil cooler. And this was the first time that I'd seen it other than that parts catalog, and it gives you the instructions on how to install it. Now obviously they're saying you know, what you need to is if you want to tow and you have this transmission, but really I'm just trying to hopefully extend the life of this transmission, and hopefully, you know, until I either get another car or whatever the case may be, not have a problem with this transmission ever again. So this was actually the most helpful thing that I found. It gives you all the part numbers, the oil cooler assembly, it has these tubes, and you know, namely of which, what makes it great that they designed it is that they actually designed these parts that are these metal tubes that, you know, give you a little more confidence instead of just running rubber tubes. Obviously I could have just run a rubber tube and then, you know, zip tied it and done a really which would have been a lot cheaper, but you know, the last thing I want is for this thing to leak out all the fluid and then I lose the transmission anyway. So I've been wanting to do this repair, but also wary about it because I know I know that this transmission has these issues. The transmission repair shop said that heat was a likely one of the causes. There's probably other causes, but one of the causes to why it failed. And in the middle of a road trip, in more hilly terrain than I'm normally driving it, that, you know, God only knows. So I'm going to install this cooler, but in addition to this, I'm also going to install an additional inline filter, one of those Magnefine filters. So I was able to get the parts, and since I got the parts, I think some of them have actually been discontinued. So here's the Magnefine filter. I got this stretch of line from Hayden. So it's like 4.5 feet of transmission line. From Amazon, I got some transmission fluid. I have a fuel filter in there, but that's separate. I have some of these clips that I got from a junkyard. But then I got transmission hose directly from Toyota that they recommended to get. Obviously, I probably was overdoing it, but I think for a lot of it, I am going to use the transmission hose from Toyota. And then I think where I'm going to splice in the filter, I'm going to use this transmission hose. And that's my plan. But the big thing are these metal lines. And when I checked again, shortly after I got them, it looks like they discontinued, I believe, this one, or maybe the other one. They discontinued one of them. So, and when I first ordered them, the dealership said, oh, this is going to be on a, you know, on a severe back order. We don't know when you're going to get it. Do you want to cancel? I'm like, no, we'll leave it. You know, if it's a couple weeks or so and I don't get it, then hey, screw it. But then a couple days later, they're like, hey, we got the hoses. So that's great. So you see, you know, very well made Toyota hoses. And then I actually ended up getting 2 coolers. And the reason for that being is that this was the first one I got. And this is like a Dorman, you know, made in China cooler. I didn't get this Toyota because this is actually like $500 or something from Toyota. But, you know, I can find an aftermarket cooler for like 50 bucks. Hopefully, I'm not making a mistake with that, but that's what it is. I don't have $500 for an extra cooler. For that, I might as well just save it and use it on a on a new car, new transmission. So we're gonna use not this cooler, because the problem with this cooler is this little lip. Sorry, I have this these papers in the way. Is this little lip here that it comes up. If this wasn't here, this would have fit perfectly. But the one that I ended up getting looks like this, and we see here there's no lip. So that lip that's on the other one, it actually pushes into the bottom of the crossbar, and it makes it very wonky to kind of fit. Whereas now I haven't test fitted this one, but based on my test fitting into the other one, I'm pretty sure this should work fine. I've kept the other one because I may use this little bracket from the other one, depending on which one fits better. I also like that it has, I believe this is called double barb hose connections, whereas the other one just has a single barb connection. I may have that language wrong, but essentially 2 of these little bumps. There's one at the end, which is in the style of the hoses. We see the style of hoses from Toyota, it uses that same kind of design, where it has 2, you know, one bump on the end, and then a space, and then another bump, and then the clip goes, you know, in that middle area. Whereas we see on this cooler, it doesn't. It just has the one bump at the end. So I'm kind of a little more confident with this one. And obviously my biggest concern is, you know, it leaking. So I think that'll help. I'm gonna just leave that on. But so this is the cooler I'm gonna use. I got it off eBay. It was like 50 bucks, and both of them were like 50 bucks. So I spent $100 on 2 coolers. Maybe I'll be able to return the other one. I'm not sure. So the actual procedure should be pretty simple, but obviously the risk is high as far as making sure that there's no leaks. So we see we're gonna take off this bottom plate. We're gonna remove the temperature switch connector. We're gonna remove the fan. Then we're gonna install the cooler line. Then we're gonna install the bracket, and then we're going to install the oil cooler tube, and then we're going to install the oil cooler, and then we're going to install the cooler, and then we're going to install that on there, and then we're going to reconnect the temperature switch. So it pretty much it's self-explanatory. Then we're going to make sure that we have the correct fluid level, which right now my fluid level is a bit high, and it's been that way since I got it rebuilt. And so I'm not really going to try to mess with the fluid level. I know this is gonna, as long as it's within the line. If it's a little above the line, I know you're not supposed to overfill it. Caution, do not overfill. That's how the shop did it. I don't know. But really, I want to make sure that my temperature runs in the right range, and that's about it. So we're gonna go through this today, and if this is beneficial to anyone, like the video and subscribe, and if it isn't, tell me why it isn't. But so I've extracted my own little instructions. So I have two sets of instructions. The bottom plate, there's this like wind guard thing, there's the battery, the fan. We're going to install the metal pipes. We're going to figure out where we're going to put the filter. We're going to put the hoses. We're going to install the filter. We're going to disconnect the fluid line and verify the flow of the fluid. Then we're going to connect the fluid line. Then we're going to run the car and check for leaks. And then we're going to drive the car and check for leaks. Obviously, there's going to be different pressures when the car is actually driving as opposed to when it's just sitting idle. So hopefully it goes well. So here we have the first part installed. The battery was removed, obviously. This cooling fan was removed. Also that plate at the bottom, those are pretty self-explanatory. The first thing I want to point out is the thin margin between where the gear selector is and this hose. And I kind of want to bring the camera down into there and show you. It's almost touching, but it's not. Here's the back side of this, and you can see, I mean, the gap is like, it almost looks like it is touching, but there is a, whew, I mean, that is close. I hope that's when it's in park. I tested it. So fortunately it goes up when it's put in gear, but whew, that is tight. I could fit like a piece of paper under there. That's about it, and like a leaf. So I hope that doesn't rub. I guess it's a good thing that it's metal, but boy, that is tight. So here we have the other set of hoses, and we see that they're lining up there. I gotta just make sure. I'm pretty sure, the left one goes to the left one, the right one goes to the right one. And here we can see more of that installation here. So it goes in. Let's see if we can see. So there's the bolt holding it in, and these are nice and sturdy. So we got the two metal hoses in. There's two 12mm bolts holding that. I think I'm just leaving this as it is. I messed with it a little bit. I kind of don't want to mess up the how that engages, so we'll just stick with that since it's only when it's in park. And yeah, this is actually a couple days later, and I have a couple things I want to note about this installation. One of the things is that, let me see where I placed that clip. I guess it's in a good place. Well, essentially, I was wrong about the direction of fluid flow. Okay, that feels like a lip. For this transmission. Now, I've gone back and looked at a couple videos. I'll leave the links in the description.
of somebody who did a fluid flush for, I guess, a 97, 98 version of this car, and then someone who did it on the 99 to 01 version of this car. So the 97, 98 uses the A541E, which is what the instructions were based off of for this transmission cooler, and it is assumed that this line on the right where I have the filter was the return line, and this was the outlet line. So it was assumed fluid was coming out of this line and coming back in through here. So it's going this way, it's going into the radiator, coming out, coming back through here. This was my assumption, and it was actually one of the things I was worried about, as which direction the fluid's going to flow. And someone actually mentioned, you know, check and see, you know, just take the fluids off, put a bucket underneath, and run the car for like 2 seconds just to see which side the fluid comes out of. So I did that, but I did that after running all the piping, and we see obviously everything's back together, so it's a bit cramped, but we see there's one pipe, the one set of pipes, and the other set is kind of tucked down below there. It's kind of hard to see. I don't know if you can see them, but then the other pipes are over there. Can we see them? It's difficult, but we can see them down here. So we can see, here's how I plumbed everything. So there's the other pipes, and then there's the hoses running into the cooler. And if you look back at the diagram, you'll see that these hoses are actually switched. So the one on the bottom was designed to go to the inlet there on the bottom, and then vice versa. So what happened is I set everything up, and in a bit of a comedic irony, I thought, well, the fluid direction must go this way. So I had the opportunity to set up the hose for both ends coming out, and to make sure that no matter which side it came in, it would land in the bucket. But I was very confident that the fluid was going to run the way that everything else said, because if you go look for this radiator on in either the full service manual, I believe in the full service manual, it calls that little pipe right there the inlet pipe. So that will lead you to believe that that's where fluid is coming in, fluid is coming out the other side. But this is what happened when I turned on the car, and I had the whole setup under the understanding that fluid was going to come out in that direction. Oh fuck, it did come out the other way. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. So yeah, it spilled all over the floor, created a whole mess, and it was going the other way. And that's when I realized the fluid was running the other way. And unfortunately, I had the filter in the incorrect way, and I had it installed because it was running through this, it was going through everything, and then I just didn't have those little pipes connected. I had the one coming out the bottom, this one I had going into the bucket, and I had that side open. So I was gonna assume fluid was gonna come in through there, go into the cooler right here, obviously bridging that connection right there, and then it would come right out of there into the bucket. But that's not what happened. So for whatever reason, the A541E flows in one direction, and the U140E flows in the other direction. So once I realized that and confirmed it, and I did a couple of tests to confirm it. So that first one was when I realized something was horribly wrong, and then this test is when I just went back to basics and just put this hose on the left side, and just ran a straight hose on the right into the bucket.
Yep. That is definitely okay. Lovely.
And you can see very clearly that it comes out of the right side. So since it comes out the right side, I now have the filter, which has the correct flow direction. I have it all plumbs up, and then since it's flip direction, that's why I flipped the direction that goes into the cooler. I don't know if that's a big deal, but since it seems like it's designed for it to come into there and come out of there, I now ran it. This is the hose where out of the test, the fluid was spilling out of the floor, so that's going into the cooler, then coming out of the cooler. So it comes back out of the cooler, and it runs over here into the radiator, and that's what happens there. And then it comes out and comes back into the radiator. So now let's check the fluid level and just see where things are at. So I just wiped down the dipstick. Let's see where the fluid level is. And obviously this is it with it off. So the correct way to check it is when it's on and idling and it's been through all of the gears. So it looks very overfilled right now. As kind of a wrap up of this part 1 video, I wanted to just talk about the results. So this is going to be more of a long term to see how it turns out, because obviously if I installed the cooler and the transmission blew out the next day, you know, was it worth it? I mean, we'll see. So I just want to, you know, with the limited time, you know, am I going to wait years to release this video, or will I release it as a part 1? So for part 1 of this video, I want to take your attention to this app. This is called like Motocar OBD, and you can purchase a upgrade. So if you have a Toyota vehicle, you can purchase this upgrade where you can see the transmission fluid temperature and things like the fuel tank vapor pressure sensor. It's 99 cents for the week that you can try it out, and this isn't sponsored or anything. I mean, if they reach out and sponsor it, I'll do another one. But you get all these cool variables. So I had purchased in the past with app called Dash Command, and Dash Command showed a lot of these, but especially this transmission fluid temperature and fuel tank vapor pressure were two for, oh, look at that, 32 degrees. I don't think my transmission fluid is freezing. What's going on? There we go. So it was just reloading. So 170, I think it's loading, hopefully. There we go, it's loading. So it's running at like 170 degrees right now. So as a wrap up, I just did probably a good 30 minutes of city driving, and then the car was maybe sitting for like 15-20 minutes, and then I just got back in the car and turned it on. So when it was sitting at 172. Now I will say, from the full service manual, maybe I'll show it in a future part, subscribe to watch that, but it says, you know, for doing tests, it's like if you're going to check the fluid level, if you're going to test different things on the transmission, make sure you get it up to normal operating temperature, which it lists at 122. It lists two different numbers. One number is 158 degrees to 176 degrees. The other number is 122 degrees Fahrenheit to 178 degrees Fahrenheit. So right now we're about 8 degrees below what it considers the top end of its operating range. Like I said, it was 172, and now it seems to have pretty much stabilized at 170 with it on in park. It's, according to the car thermometer, it's 83 degrees outside, and after doing 30 minutes of city driving. Then we see the fuel tank vapor pressure is, I guess, going up,
and seeing that really helped fixing the vapor canister. So I'll do future updates on this. Leave a comment on what you think about that. If you've used this app, if you've done any of those things, leave a comment, and if you're asking a question or something, I'll try to answer if I can. If I can't, I can't. But yeah, this app has worked pretty cool. At some point I may just, it's $15 to just have it outright, this Toyota plug-in, and I mean, considering how much cheaper that is than like a full, obviously you can't do everything that a full scan tool, but also it's at like 1% of the cost. So yeah, the app is free, and then you get the plug-in and it gives you the rest of the variables. So I think that's going to end this this video for now. Thanks for watching.